wartime, the diver comes into his own. His is the job of repairing the ships that are wounded, of saving them from death in time of battle. His is the job of taking from the sunken vessels the goods needed in war, goods which the enemy has hoped to destroy. In such work, often a shallow water diving technique is all that is needed to save a torpedoed ship or to raise goods from ships lost in shallow water. To men who have been trained to know the techniques of deep diving, who feel comfortable at a depth of 200 feet, shallow water diving may seem child's play. For what is 15 feet to a man who, as a child, dove for hidden caves? But just because of its ease and simplicity, shallow diving is dangerous. Carelessness or bravado on the part of the untrained man may lead to serious consequences, may even prove fatal. Only if a man fully understands his equipment and how to use it will he be safe from these dangers. In general, shallow water diving equipment falls into two classes. The first is in principle a diving bell, that is, an inverted bowl into which air is fed. This air causes a positive buoyancy, which tends to make the bowl rise. Consequently, weights must be added to counteract this buoyancy and hold the bell below the surface. This first class is represented by both the standard helmet, used without dress and with weights applied, and by the Navy standard shallow water helmet. The second class is the face mask, which basically is a facial covering that seeks to supply the diver with air and with adequate vision. It eliminates the disadvantages of the heavy helmet, which restricts the movement of the diver. This class is represented by the Victor Berg mask, which is currently the Navy standard shallow water diving mask, and by the Mark III gas mask, adapted for underwater work. With neither of these types is a regular diving dress worn. However, research is being carried on to find a suitable shallow water dress for use with the mask, probably along these lines. Such a dress will provide protection against rough surfaces and cold water. But at the moment, swimming trunks alone are worn in warm water diving when the body needs no protection from rough objects. While in colder waters, a coat of grease on the diver's body affords some protection, as does the wearing of Navy standard diving underwear, or both can be used together. The underwear as well provides protection against scraping of the skin. In all cases, however, sneakers should be worn since they not only serve as safeguards for the feet, but also tend to make the diver more sure-footed. Of these various devices used for shallow diving, the least satisfactory is the standard helmet, since it was not designed for this purpose. Consequently, it should be resorted to only in an emergency. To prepare it for use, it is necessary to seal off the telephone communication inlet, for it is impossible to use the telephone in shallow diving with the standard helmet, since in the course of the dive, water may reach it and damage it. Consequently, the gooseneck must be closed to prevent water rushing through it into the helmet. Then the telephone transceiver is removed from the inside of the helmet to protect it from possible damage. To hold the helmet in position on the diver's shoulders, 2 to 4 lead weights taken from the standard diving belt and weighing approximately 8 pounds apiece are used. Their number depends upon the conditions under which the dive is to be made, such as the depth of water or the strength of the current. These are secured in any convenient manner to the breastplate and distributed as required. Usually, more weight is placed in front to prevent the helmet from tipping back when the diver bends forward. In this particular case, marlin is passed through the holes in the front weights. And is run through the pad eyes. And so over the shoulders of the breastplate. It is then secured to the weights or weight in the rear. For a tighter fit, the lines may be bolted under the breastplate clamps in this manner. When this helmet is to be used, the regulating exhaust valve must be kept closed. If air were to exhaust through it, the water would rise above shoulder level with most unsatisfactory consequences. The air should always exhaust from under the edges of the breastplate and not from the exhaust valve. The standard control valve should be used to decrease the turbulence of this escaping air and yet maintain adequate ventilation within the helmet. This outfit may be used with air flasks or a power compressor or the various manually operated pumps such as the Mark III, Morse Mark 15, or Mark 17. For shallow diving up to 36 feet, the best of the helmets is the shallow water helmet or Miller-Dunn Navy type helmet. Made of copper with a handle at the top to facilitate handling, this helmet is really a diving bell. It fits over the diver's head and rests on his shoulders. Vision is provided for by two plate glass windows set in a bronze frame in the front of the helmet. To prevent breakage, they are protected by a long top and a short bottom guard. The very latest models are built with only one window. Air is provided by the Miller-Dunn pump, but for diving to 36 feet, this pump is barely adequate. If the work is hard, it will not serve. The helmet, however, can be used with the flask or compressor or any of the various manually operated pumps. For depths greater than 36 feet, divers must add the air control valve used with the standard dress. The valve must also be used whenever the source of air is high pressure, as from a flask. The air enters through this gooseneck on the lower right side of the helmet. Inside, it is deflected by a copper baffle plate which keeps it from striking the diver's ear and aids its circulation. Excess and exhaust air escape from under the rolled edge of the helmet. To hold the four special lead weights needed to keep the helmet in place, broad copper straps are riveted to the front and back plates of the helmet. These weights, approximately 10 pounds apiece, are made fast to the weight straps of the helmet, two in front, two in back. The second class of equipment, the shallow water diving mask, is still in a stage of development. The present Navy standard mask not being satisfactory for hard work. Many experiments are being conducted to find the correct solution. At the moment, this adaptation of the Mark III gas mask seems to be farthest in the right direction. Ideally speaking, the starting point in any design for a shallow water diving mask is the naked skin diver with his facility of movement. The problem is to supply him with air for breathing and a transparent covering for his eyes, so that he can see underwater with the greatest possible range of vision and with a minimum amount of distortion. To answer this problem, therefore, all satisfactory masks should contain these features. There should be a framework supporting a transparent faceplate and hose connections. The contact between the edges of the mask and the face, which forms the seal, should follow the fleshy portions of the face. If rubber or other flexible edging is used, a universal fit can be readily obtained. If a rigid frame is desired, the contact edge must be shaped to the individual face. The air inlet should be so constructed that incoming air blows over the face plate to prevent fogging. Exhaust air is generally allowed to escape around the edges of the mask. However, an exhaust valve placed in the top of the mask will cause a slight negative pressure inside the mask. This pressure will facilitate sealing and will reduce the annoyance of the air bubbling out from under the edges. There must be a non-return valve inserted in the hose to prevent the mortally dangerous suction which will occur without it, should the hose be stopped or cut. To facilitate clearing the ears, it should be possible to move the mask sufficiently to jam the nose against the faceplate or a buffer installed for that purpose, despite the fact that many divers can be taught to clear their ears without such assistance. Some method should be provided to conserve air, particularly if the supply is limited. The inhalation phase of the respiratory cycle consumes only about 30 or 40% of the cycle. Consequently, unless air is provided only during the inhalation phase, 60 or 70% of the air supplied serves no useful purpose. This wastage of air can be overcome by providing a demand valve, which will open only on inhalation due to differential pressure on a diaphragm. To make it operative, the pressure behind the valve must be kept at 50 to 100 pounds greater than bottom pressure, a serious disadvantage. Such a valve naturally has some resistance to inhalation, a resistance which becomes tiring when heavy work is being done. A simpler solution for this wastage of air is to install a breathing bag in the supply line. This bag can be made an integral part of the mask or can be placed in a jacket high on the wearer's shoulders. In either case, however, an air control valve must be provided with the bag. The diver should then adjust his air supply by means of the control valve until the bag collapses almost completely on inhalation. As a result, only the air actually to be breathed enters the mask. Such a system is especially desirable when diving with a hand pump, since only about 2 or 3 pounds pressure over bottom pressure is needed to supply ample air. Pulsations due to pumping are lost in the breathing bag, so eliminating the need for a volume tank. This adaptation of the Mark III gas mask does not meet all these requirements, but will serve until a more suitable device is designed. The exhalation diaphragm of the mask is closed off. And the passage that normally leads to the flutter valve is soldered. In place of the canister in the rear, a small volume tank is inserted as a means of connecting the two hoses. Into this leads the air hose with a non-return valve making the connection. Air passes through the hose into the valve, thence into the volume tank through the two hoses of the mask, from which it flows over the lenses. It exhausts from under the edges of the mask. For use with this mask, a weighted belt can be easily improvised from a standard rifle cartridge belt. Lead plates may be cut or cast to fit the pockets of the belt. In this manner, the weight of the belt can be adjusted from 2 to 20 pounds, depending on the needs of the diver. No matter what type of belt is used, however, it must be capable of being quickly removed. As with the other devices, air can be furnished either from a standard compressor, the various hand pumps, or the flask. Sometimes, however, a small hand pump, such as this 2-cylinder single-action pump, is used for dives up to 36 feet. With such a pump, a half-cubic foot volume tank must always be provided. It prevents the air pulsations caused by the action of the pump from being transmitted to the diver. This volume tank is desirable with all other pumps and compressors, but is not obligatory. But the surest and easiest method of air supply is from an air flask, or if the dive is to be below 48 feet, from a standard oxygen bottle containing compressed air. In the latter case, the regulator must be used to obtain the required pressure. Either flask or bottle forms a single source of supply, easily transported. Generally speaking, the laws of safety are the same for all shallow water diving devices. In the first place, it is imperative that the diver be a first-class swimmer, since he has to depend on a swimming technique to aid his movements. Furthermore, should his hose and lifeline become fouled, he will be forced to remove his mask or helmet and so must depend on his skill as a swimmer to reach the surface. In the second place, no operation should be attempted unless it is supervised by a competent officer or enlisted man trained in this field. All equipment should be checked before use. The standard helmet is examined in the same manner as when used in deep-sea diving. The tender also closes the regulating exhaust valve and the spitcock to prevent the exhaust of air from above chin level. The shallow water helmet is checked for the correct fit and condition of the ports, for the proper securing of the weights. The Mark III gas mask adaptation, or any of the masks, is examined to see that the non-return valve works properly. This valve must be removed and tested by attempting to blow smoke through it. If the attempt fails, the valve is in working order. Before the diver makes his descent, it is mandatory that in addition to his descending line, he be provided with a safety line of any suitable strength, such as an 18 or 21 thread manila line. In helmet diving, this is bent around the waist. In mask diving, it is secured to the air hose. Both are attached to the belt. The safety line to the diver's right, the air hose with control valve to his left. If either helmet is used, it is essential that the air hose be bent in such a way that a bight is formed and secured to the helmet in this manner. Through this bight, the diver passes his left arm to prevent the helmet from being pulled off his head. In helmet diving, under no circumstances should the weights be fixed to the diver's body in this or any other manner. For in case of accident, he must be able to shed his helmet and weights as fast as possible. So held down, he is in grave danger. On the other hand, if the mask is used, the hose and lifeline are attached to the belt so that the diver can get rid of both simultaneously if the need arises. And so the diver begins his descent. Once underwater, he will notice his easiest means of descent is to place his feet together in this manner, letting the descending line pass between his insteps. Otherwise, his descent is simple and follows the practice that obtains in deep-sea diving. Should, while wearing the mask, he feel the effects of pressure, he can hold his nose through the mask or push it against the diaphragm to assist him in clearing his ears. If in shallow water helmet, he can press his nose against one of the windows. On the bottom, his work is governed by the factors of visibility, the nature of the bottom, current. He relies upon the same hand signals that are used in deep-sea diving. Tests have proved, however, that a telephone is practical for use with shallow water masks, as for example, this Mark III gas mask equipped with telephone. In general, the diver's chief problem when wearing the helmet is to maintain his balance. Should he fall or bend over beyond a safe angle of approximately 45 degrees, he spills the air from his helmet and places himself in serious danger. On the other hand, the mask permits the diver to assume any position. Should, however, he trip and flood his helmet, or if in mask, foul his airline, he can rid himself of his gear and begin a slow swimming ascent to the surface. But he must remember to exhale continuously while so ascending, for he has been under pressure, and as a consequence, the air in his lungs is compressed even as the air in this basketball is compressed. As the basketball is drawn up through the water, the air in it expands because the pressure of the surrounding water grows less and less. In the same way, the air in the diver's lungs expands as he ascends, and as the pressure in the surrounding water decreases. Should this expanding air not be expelled, it will fill the lungs beyond their capacity. Small tears will be made in the lung wall. Through such a rupture, air, in the form of a bubble, will enter the bloodstream and produce severe illness. If the bubble should reach the brain or heart, it could cause paralysis or death. This condition is called air embolism. So the diver ascending without helmet or mask never forgets to exhale. He knows that so to do is one of the most serious mistakes a diver can make, one that he is not likely to have the opportunity to repeat. Of course, this danger is not present if the diver is ascending in helmet or mask and is breathing normally, since the air entering his helmet is at a slightly greater pressure than that of the surrounding water. But the greatest danger in shallow water diving, as in deep sea diving, is in exceeding the regulation depths and periods of time allowed on the bottom. The depth to which a masked diver can descend is limited only by the available air supply and by those physical limitations that the dressed and helmeted diver has. In other words, the shallow water diver, breathing compressed air, can descend to the neighborhood of 300 feet, depending on his tolerance to nitrogen and oxygen. However, the Navy has established these rules. On compressed air, the ordinary diver should not go below 50 feet nor stay over 78 minutes. An experienced deep-sea diver may descend to 80 feet for 35 minutes. If the shallow water pump is used, the maximum is 36 feet for 240 minutes. If pure oxygen is being breathed, the maximum is 40 feet for 30 minutes to lessen the danger of oxygen poisoning. Although shallow diving gear cannot equal the standard dress for safety, yet it can be a time saver and of great value. So long as the diver observes all the rules of safety, so long as he avoids all bravado, he can be of inestimable use to the Navy and to his country. He need not be an experienced deep-sea diver. He need only know how to swim, how to go about his work.